Hello and welcome to my blackjacking guide. I'm going to show you how to be as efficient as possible, also known as being tick perfect. I'll show you the visual cues you need so that your clicks don't have to be spammed. A lot of people spam click while doing this, and it's quite a bit more simple than that. Blackjacking is the best thieving experience from level 45 all the way to level 91, and you get a pretty good bump once you get to the Menifite thugs at 65. The different tiers are the 45, 55 bandits, and then the 65 thugs. So all of the techniques I show you, I'll be demonstrating on Menifite thugs, but they apply to anyone that you blackjack. So I'll get right into it. In order to start blackjacking, you'll need to have completed the Fued Quest, and you'll need to go to Polnivnich. The level 45 and 55 requirement bandits are at the north section of Polnivnich, and the level 65 requirement Menifite thugs are in the south section of Polnivnich. These bandits that carry the blackjack are the bandits you can train on at level 45 thieving. And at 55 thieving, you can move up to these bandits that have the scimitar. They'll be better experience, so you'll definitely want to move to them as soon as you hit 55 thieving. And at 65 thieving, you can finally move on to these exquisitely robed Menifite thugs. They'll be the best experience you can get blackjacking. So as far as the gear setup goes, you need your maple blackjack. You want to have a maple one, but the type like O or D or whatever, that doesn't matter. You only need to make sure you have the maple one. Then you can bring the rogue set if you have it to double the amount of money you get from blackjacking. It doesn't end up being a lot, but it is significant. And then for your inventory setup, it'll depend on your HP level. If you're a 10 HP pure, chocolate cakes are the best. Otherwise, you'll want to bring jugs of wine. And then if your HP level is 51 HP and up, you can bring strawberries. If you're bringing any food except for strawberries, you just want to fill up your entire inventory with that food type, and then have the noted food in the top left, and then your stack of coins. If you have baskets of strawberries, you'll want to keep 5 inventory spaces open for strawberries, and then fill up the rest with baskets, like I have here. So the reason you use baskets of strawberries 51 and up is because they heal 4 HP. Before that, it's not quite worth it, so I'd still recommend the jugs of wine. And then for 10 HP pures, the chocolate cake ends up healing a lot more than strawberries would, and then jugs of wine are kind of wasted on a 10 HP pure. In chocolate cake, you can get 2 uses per inventory spot. So that's kind of the explanation of the different types of food. So I am level 84 hit points, so obviously I'm going to be using strawberries in this demo, and we'll go on to the next step now. Blackjacking is knocking the person out and then pickpocketing them while they're on the ground. So regardless on if that first knockout fails or succeeds, we always want to initiate that first pickpocket, and we click pickpocket as soon as our blackjack is at the apex of the swing. So knockout, pickpocket, right at the apex. When you fail a knockout, the Menifite thug will begin attacking you. So luckily, at the apex of our first knockout, we always pickpocket, and that pickpocket actually will interrupt the attack. So even if you fail the knockout, it should interrupt their attack immediately, and you'll be able to go back to knocking out. So this is where having a full inventory comes into play. You'll notice that when I try to pickpocket the Menifite thug, it actually says you don't have enough inventory space to do that. So what this means is that our character doesn't actually attempt the pickpocket. So at lower levels especially, we will never be stunned while trying to attempt this pickpocket to interrupt the attacks when we fail a knockout. So what this means is we'll be damaged less, so we have to eat less, which means we can spend more time blackjacking, and we will never stunned. So that means we don't have to wait for the stun to cool off as well. So at level 85, I've seen that using a full inventory increases the experience rates by about 25k experience per hour, and I was actually able to get up to about 250k experience per hour using this method at level 85. So in the situation where we succeed the knockout and we do get the first pickpocket, we want to initiate the second pickpocket the moment our blackjack disappears, because when we do the first pickpocket, our person will start the bury bones animation and the blackjack disappears during that time period. So knockout, pickpocket, as soon as that disappears, we do the second pickpocket. So then we get 2 like that, and then as soon as they go down for the second pickpocket, we'll initiate another knockout. So we get a full cycle. So pickpocket, pickpocket, knockout, pickpocket again, pickpocket. So this is the basic cycle. It only gets interrupted when we fail the knockout, and that's when we do a normal pickpocket. They get interrupted, and we just knock out again. So you really just have to pay attention for when you fail a knockout, and then immediately pickpocket and knock out again, like that. So I failed the knockout, but I interrupted them with a pickpocket, immediately went to knockout. So that's basically the whole thing. You might get some situations where the second animation for the pickpocket doesn't actually happen, and that's if you went a little bit fast, but you still get the experience for it and it happens. So you just want to watch out for that. Okay, so eventually you will probably mess up and you'll get stuck in combat with the Menifite Thug. So there are a couple of things you can do to stop this. The first one is you can just run over here to these stairs. You can climb up the stairs and then come back, and you should be unaggressive by the time you get back. The other thing you can do is you can stay here and wait for a hit splat, and as soon as you see the hit splat, click lure. And as it goes, you want to go through the dialogue as fast as you can, so you get through the entire dialogue before he hits you a second time. So I'm going to wait for a hit splat, and then I'm going to go through the dialogue really quickly. He said go away, I'm busy, so that was a fail. You have to try again. So you wait for a hit splat, spam through here. If you get the it's a surprise follow me, then he'll stop attacking you, and you want to wait for your health bar to disappear before going back in for another knockout. If you knock out before your health bar disappears, he'll continue attacking you again, and you'll have to do the lure all over. So eventually you'll run out of food and you'll need to get more by unloading what you brought. So if you have jugs of wine, you can begin dropping the empty jugs now as you run over here, and you can talk to this trader right here and you can buy more jugs of wine. This is particularly useful for Ironmen. But if you have baskets of strawberries like me, or you have noted wines with you, you can run over here to the note merchant and you can trade them in, drop the baskets as you go. And for the strawberries, you want to keep these last 5 in your inventory. You don't want to eat them when you're completely out of, when all of your baskets are empty. That way, when you go here and exchange your notes with the merchant by clicking on the note and then on the exchange merchant, you can exchange all, and it'll be like this, so you'll still have these 5 inventory spots. If you eat these 5 strawberries, then it'll fill your whole inventory with baskets, and there's not a way to easily turn them back into notes, so you want to keep those 5 full of strawberries. One more thing is when you're luring the bandit inside this house that's kind of finicky, you have to make sure he's on this side so that he'll follow you in, because you kind of have to go diagonal like this. So you'll just want to make sure that you kind of run to this square so he follows you to this spot, and then you can run inside. If you try to do it from a different place, he sometimes gets stuck. So if you're having a hard time, just make sure you use that corner to lure him in. Another tip I have is getting rid of this attack option so that there's less distance between your mouse and pickpocket when you right click. So to do that, you go to Options, Controls, and then select Hidden on this NPC Attack Options drop-down. I'd also like to point out that this works well on mobile. All you have to do is enable the single tap controls and have at it. I have noticed that I have to tap a little bit sooner than I would click on PC, but that may be due to my hardware or my connection. This video is an Amazon Fire 10, so just know that you may have to adjust a little bit if you're on mobile, but it's pretty much the same idea. Another tip I have for PC is the client size. You'll notice that I have fixed mode on, but the menu options look fairly large in comparison to my mouse. That's because I'm using RuneLite to stretch fixed size mode. So to do this, you have to have a client like RuneLite or OS Buddy, and you can go to the RuneLite plugin under the configuration, and you can change the game size. So this is double the native size, and you want to keep it as multiples of the native size to prevent weird stretching. You'll notice everything looks pretty uniform, it's just twice as large. It's kind of hard to tell in the video, but believe me, it's twice as large. So you have to change that, and then you want to go to the stretched mode plugin and have that turned on. And I like to keep increased performance checked because it makes everything a lot sharper. When it's unchecked, everything is blurry. Difficult to tell in the video, but I definitely prefer increased performance mode. So what this does is when you're trying to select these menu options, there's a lot more room for error because your mouse is much smaller, the menus are bigger, so it's easier to click on the option you prefer. I'd also like to point out a technique that just uses the expand to fill the window option under the options. And what you do here is instead you just make the window's height as small as possible, and I have it kind of wide so I can have some space here between these left side options and the options on the right. And then when you right click on the Minify Thug and he's close to the bottom of the camera, these options are always in the same place. And you'll notice I have two screen markers here, so I always know where the pickpocket and knockout options are even if I don't have him right clicked. So you just have to position it in such a way that he's like in a corner, he can't move, and just go back to the normal method. This particular spot you can see your character, so you can still see the visual cues just from a different angle. It's kind of hard in other places that I've seen. This one's good because there's a barrel right here. Other ones would have to be up against a wall, and then you wouldn't be able to see him. This is also a good spot because when Minify Thugs are walking around the outside, if you're in one of these positions, you could accidentally click on them instead. So this seems like a pretty good spot. The only downside is setup time, so you lose a little bit of efficiency during setup. This is a really easy spot to get though. It's the first spot he walks into this room. So it should be pretty simple to set up. But sometimes they decide to walk around, and when that happens you'll have to relure again, and then every time you come back from unnoting or getting new food, you'll have to put them back here into this spot. So just a little bit of lost efficiency during setup, but it reduces the amount you have to move your mouse by quite a bit. So it really just depends on if you want to sacrifice that for a little bit less mouse movement. I think for most people it's probably worth it, so I'd recommend this one, unless you're going for maximum efficiency. So this is what it looks like when you try to lure them to that spot. You come inside here normally, close the curtain. Sometimes they just stay there and you can walk over to the spot. Usually when you walk over here to close the curtain, they'll move away like this, and then you just have to walk onto their square to get them to move back. Sometimes they move over to the right like that, and you really just have to keep trying. I'm not really sure why they go one way or the other. If anyone has any insight to this, I'd love to know in the comments. For screen markers, RuneLite has a pretty easy plugin. You just click this button over here on the side. You get this menu, you can click this plus, and then left click and drag. Click the check mark, and you have a screen marker. You can turn it off and on, and then you can delete it. OSBuddy has a pretty similar setup, and you can also get screen marker tools specific for your operating system, so it doesn't have to be related to your RuneScape client necessarily. But this is the pretty easy way to do it. That's all you need to know about blackjacking to do it efficiently, and here's some footage of me doing it so you can get a better feel for the different situations. The full inventory method experience rates are close to about 250,000 experience per hour. If you're not using the full inventory, you can only get about 220,000 experience per hour. And I really recommend using it because you don't lose your momentum when you get stunned during a pickpocket. And that's really important because when you lose your momentum like that, it's hard to get back into the swing of things. So it really helps me to just grind out longer periods of time when you don't get interrupted by the stuns. So if you have any other further questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll try to answer your question as best I can as soon as I can. So thank you for watching, and see you later.